Bastion is getting a buff, or more accurately, 3 completely separate buffs. That's right, everyone's most hated Omnic is in for a major buff in the next PTR patch. Hey everyone, this is Dabacabb, and today we are diving into the rather significant buffs that are hitting Bastion's way. So recently, Jeff Goodman, the principal designer of Overwatch, made a forum post where he outlines their intended changes for Overwatch on the next PTR update. First off, his recon mode gun is getting a buff across the board. First off, it has a lowered spread, so it would be more accurate. Secondly, it would have an increased magazine size. We don't know how much of an increase, but this is going to make Bastion much more viable when he's stomping around in humanoid mode. Secondly, they are completely redesigning his self-repair. Currently, whenever you're holding E, Bastion stays in place and he heals himself, and any damage he takes while he's healing will interrupt the effect. The redesign will make it work a little bit more like D.Va's defense matrix, so instead of a spammable ability that he can use whenever he wants, he will have a resource that gradually recharges, much like D.Va's defense matrix, and then when he uses his heal, it gradually ticks down until he's out. However, with this new self-repair, he will be able to move while healing, and it will no longer be interrupted while taking damage. And third, the big change is coming to his sentry mode. They are refocusing the purpose of sentry mode, so it's going to be less of like a team destroyer and more of a shield buzzer. So it'll tear through things like Symmetra shields and Reinhardt barriers and Winston shields. They're making the turret mode less accurate by increasing the spread, and they're also making it impossible to hit headshots while you're in sentry mode, weirdly enough. But the upside is that you're going to take less damage while you're transformed. We don't know what that will mean exactly, if it'll be some sort of passive damage reduction, or if it will mean more of your health gets transformed into armor, kind of like what he has in tank mode. So these are going to be some pretty significant changes for Bastion. First off, he's going to be far better when he's in recon mode. The buffed gun means he will be able to more reliably shoot people and get picks while he's on the move. Secondly, being able to move and repair will significantly increase his survivability. I mean, anyone who's played Bastion has had that moment when you're in sentry mode, suddenly you get hit from an unexpected angle, and you switch into recon mode to try and get out of there as quickly as possible, but it's too late. The final shots come in and pick you off. With the ability to repair while moving and through damage, it will be significantly harder to kill a recon Bastion. Secondly, the changes to sentry mode will make him a little bit less focused on getting, plays of the game, mowing down the enemy team, and make him a little bit more focused on stopping advances. I mean, obviously, making his gun less accurate and removing headshots is going to make it a little bit harder for him to kill people. I mean, we're still talking about Bastion damage here, so he's really going to pump out some DPS. If he catches someone without any defenses or healing, he's still going to shred them. However, he's not going to shred them quite as quickly, especially on those really thin, hard to hit targets like Baby D.Va or Tracer or Symmetra. But obviously his ability to tear through shields won't really be affected by this. I mean, it's impossible to miss a Reinhardt barrier. It's impossible to miss a Winston shield. The spread of the bullets isn't really going to be affected by that. Also, headshots don't really matter with that. So his ability to tear down shields is going to be basically the same. Not really worse, not really any better, just the same. But he's going to be tankier while he's in sentry mode. We don't know how much tankier. All we know is somehow he's going to be harder to kill. Not only will he take less damage while he's in sentry mode, but his self-repair will be better in the sense that he will be able to repair through damage. My guess is that the self-repair buff is mainly going to be useful for mobile Bastions. I mean, being able to heal while you're moving is really awesome. Yeah, it might be nice, it might be handy while you're in sentry mode to heal while you're taking damage, but realistically, I don't think it's going to be super useful. I think if you're in sentry mode and you're taking damage, you're in trouble kind of no matter what. You should get out of there, unless you just need to survive for 1 or 2 more seconds for your Reinhardt to get in a position and protect you. The recon mode gun buff is just a straight up buff. It is better across the board. The sentry mode and the self-repair, I guess you could say buffs, are kind of like side grades more than actual buffs, because they kind of change it so it's better in one way but worse in the other. But overall, I think it's safe to say that these are buffs because they make him a little bit better at the things that he's already very weak at, without significantly decreasing his ability to do what he used to do very well. So what we can look forward to is a more mobile Bastion, a more lethal Bastion in recon mode, a Bastion that's harder to kill both in recon mode and in sentry mode. So based on just this small post, which doesn't have a whole lot of information in it, I'd say that this is a pretty substantial buff. The thing about Bastion is that he has some very significant, very glaring weaknesses. He has certain vulnerabilities that if those vulnerabilities are exploited, he will die. These changes soften those vulnerabilities a bit so that he's not quite as vulnerable, not quite as suicidal, not quite as all or nothing as he was before. He's a little bit more flexible, a little bit more adaptable, a little bit tougher, a little bit harder to kill, and a little bit more mobile. That will overall make him much harder to kill. It seems these changes are much more focused on his survivability, on his defensive options, about his ability to navigate around the map, rather than his ability to tear through shields, to murder people, and get plays of the game. Overall, I like these changes. I think they're going to make Bastion a little bit stronger and more viable by softening his weaknesses and making him just a little bit more flexible. Is he going to be good enough for competitive play? I'm not sure. He's still very all or nothing, and skilled players know exactly how to counter Bastion. They know how to exploit his weaknesses. Of course, now that he has fewer weaknesses, or that his weaknesses are less severe, maybe that won't be such a big deal. Maybe he will be more viable. But then, you kind of have to wonder, is that a good thing? Do we want to see more Bastions? Is that good for the game? Yes and no. I mean, on the one hand, it's really frustrating to play against Bastion. I mean, he's probably the most hated character in the game, and for good reason. However, I really like what this change can potentially bring to the game, and that is potentially a more reliable counter to Reinhardt. Reinhardt is a beast in the meta right now. I mean, just a 2000 shield is so useful. I see at my bracket at about 3300 competitive, I see Reinhardt's almost every single game. And whenever one side doesn't have a Reinhardt, they're typically punished pretty hard for it. So if Bastion's more viable, then that might actually introduce a counter to Reinhardt. If Reinhardt can't reliably keep his shield up because every time he hits right click, Bastion just melts through it like a hot knife through butter, then, maybe we'll see fewer Reinhardts. And that is a good thing because it promotes a less stale and more flexible meta. Another interesting note is that this change is coming right after the Symmetra changes, and the new Symmetra E is very useful, very strong. I mean, if you approach a corner and a Symmetra suddenly turns the corner and presses E, so it's impossible for you to shoot her because of the barrier, which has 1000 health, and she's charging towards you holding left click. In a lot of cases, you're kind of screwed, unless you have some sort of movement ability that can help you escape. But if you've got, Bastion support who's tearing down those shields, helping you get damage through the choke point, then suddenly maybe we've got a reliable counter to all these shields we're seeing right now. So I guess I'm looking forward to these changes. I'm pro balance. I would like, in an ideal world, ideally, what I would like to happen is to have every single hero in the game played equally. So Sombra is just as good as Reinhardt, it's just as good as Bastion, it's just as good as Ana and Lucio, and everyone's equally good. That's the ideal, perfect world. Obviously, Bastion's going to need a couple of buffs to get up there. That's good for game balance, that's good for match diversity. It's bad because it means we're going to see more Bastions, and Bastions can be incredibly frustrating to play against. The one thing I gotta say that's kind of weird, I kind of assumed they would make this change, is I thought they were going to reduce his model size, because Bastion is gigantic. He's huge. He's like the size of Reinhardt, the size of Roadhog. He's massive. I think he actually physically takes up more space than Zarya. And Zarya is designed to take damage. He's supposed to be, up in the front lines absorbing shots. Bastion, not so much. When Bastion's in recon mode, you don't want him taking shots. He's supposed to be setting up somewhere safely so he can pump out damage. So to all my fans out there, I have a couple questions for you. First of all, I want to know, are you looking forward to these changes? Obviously, they're going to be a buff to Bastion. They're going to make Bastion more viable. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I've added a poll in the upper right hand corner. Vote and let me know your thoughts. Do you think making Bastion more viable and competitive is a good thing because it makes the game a bit more balanced and diverse? Or do you consider it a bad thing because it means you're going to come up against more Bastions than you used to? My second question is, how would you balance Bastion? How would you fix Bastion? This is a serious question. I mean, I know I'm probably going to get some answers like delete him from the game or whatever. But let's suppose you were a designer at Overwatch and they said, hey, person, fix Bastion. Come up with some changes that will make him more viable. What would you do? What would be your changes? Like for one, I would reduce his character model by a tad. He doesn't need to be the size of a tank while he's in recon mode. I'm not really sure what the point of that is. So shrinking him down would make him a little bit harder to hit and would increase his survivability a little bit. So leave your thoughts down in the comments. Also, be sure to thumbs up this video. It really helps me out a lot, and subscribe if you're not already. Also, check out my Discord in the link, my Twitter in the link as well. Also, check out my Discord in the description, my Twitter in the description as well. Tell your mom about me, write to your congressman, get Dabacabb tattoos, all that stuff helps me out a ton. So thanks for watching, Dabacabb out.